Okay, ladies and gentlemen, members of the convention, but equally members of our global community that are tuning into this session of the convention, I want to briefly describe what's going to happen over the next 50 minutes or so. We're going to have brief introductions from 7 countries, from Ronald MacDonald in Sydney, from David Dempsey in Munich, from Paul Lynch in Paris, from John Murphy in New York, from Susan Cahill in Montreal.
I don't mind if Tom does that.
Sorry? And from Mary Hickman and Ryan Feeney, who are here on stage with us. And in each of these cases, the panelists will have 3 or 4 minutes, and they'll have that. We're going to have to be quite precise about that to make their point, to reflect the viewpoint of the countries in which they are based, and particularly the comments that the people citizens in those countries who filled in the online questionnaire, to reflect what those are saying in the questionnaire. We're then going to invite some questions from the floor, and those questions will have to be posed up here on the stage, so people will have to come up if they want to pose a question. There'll be a limited amount of time for that, and then we will go back to the people in the different cities. Could I call on Paul Lynch in Paris? Paul, off you go.
Good afternoon from Paris. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon from Paris. The topic of the right to vote has been the subject of many conversations amongst the Irish in France for a considerable amount of time. The granting of voting rights in presidential elections would be a huge step forward and could lead perhaps to eventual granting of limited rights to voting in referenda and general elections. France is the home of many Irish citizens, either long or short term. Irish citizens in France may vote in local or European elections, but as the dynamics of politics in France differs considerably from Ireland, many people generally don't get too involved. In fact, the only time Irish people feel enfranchised in France is when they get to vote by SMS for Ireland in the Eurovision Song Contest. In this very embassy here in Paris, a number of years ago, the question of the right to vote was put to a prominent Irish government minister. The standard reply, which I'm sure many immigrants have heard in the past, was, "Do you pay tax in Ireland?" The person in question actually had a house in Ireland which was rented, and he did in fact pay income tax on the rental income. So although he was living in France, he was in fact paying income tax in Ireland, but still he had no vote. The minister in question told him he would get back to him on the subject. So 7 years later, he's still waiting. This is probably a situation which some Irish citizens abroad find themselves in, and perhaps should be part of your deliberations. With a considerable amount of Irish passports in the world, we here in France recognise that there would need to be a cut-off point with regard to who can and cannot vote. For presidential elections, for example, we suggest that any Irish passport holder of voting age born on the island of Ireland should have a vote, or any Irish passport holder of voting age who has exercised their right to vote in any election or referendum in the Republic of Ireland. The second condition would be to take into consideration the many Irish who were born, for example, in the United Kingdom, to Irish parents who emigrated in the 1950s, but returned to Ireland with their children when the economy in Ireland had improved. We recognise the issue of emigrants voting in general elections and referenda is a complex one. We are hopeful there will be a convention in the future to discuss this subject, but in the interim, however, we feel that any person who has emigrated from the Republic of Ireland should be allowed to vote in general elections and referenda for a specified period, for example 5 years, in the constituency in which they resided before emigration. To enable as many immigrants to participate, this voting would be performed electronically. An administration fee should be applied to ensure this procedure is not a burden on the Irish taxpayer. On behalf of the Irish people in France, I would like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving us this opportunity to express our opinions on this subject. Thank you very much.
Paul, thanks very much again, and thanks for being so precise in your timing. Thanks very much indeed, David. Paul in Paris.
Yeah, just referring back to the my presentation about the voting in general elections and referenda is a complex issue. But perhaps it might be an idea for the government to consider setting up an actual ministry for the diaspora. So in other words, have the minister for the diaspora, and maybe then within this ministry, maybe split the diaspora into three zones: the Americas, North and South America, Europe and Africa, and then Asia and Australasia. And then the people in the diaspora would be entitled to vote for this particular ministry. And it's just because of the complexity of North and South Ireland. Obviously, it's there's always going to be issues when it comes to general elections in the Republic of Ireland. So maybe this might be another solution where having a new ministry.
Okay, Paul, thank you very much.